Hiya folks, how's it going? I'm Lexi and I really like tabletop games. So much so that we review one here together on the gaming table, once a week, every week, and hopefully in under 10 minutes. So maybe I can help you find your next game. If that interests you, I encourage you to hit subscribe and keep watching today's video. Today we are taking a look at a game I picked up a while ago in a different city. Whenever I go to a new city, I'm always seeking out what their game stores are just to see what they have that I don't have in my local city. I thought this game was interesting enough that we could talk about it today. This is A Town Called Malice. A Town Called Malice is not set in one particular place. In this game, you create the setting as part of the initial gameplay. Generally speaking, this game is inspired by Nordic noir and crime shows. For example, Twin Peaks. The town where the game takes place is generally going to be isolated and have decades of secrets. Everyone in this town has their own motivation and their own goals. You represent the different locations that will be in your town using index cards, often with just a word and maybe one or two sentences if you should need it. Your scenes will take place in the locations you create with different non-player characters you'll introduce. It's a pretty flexible concept. Also, introducing new locations and non-player characters has an effect on the game's mechanics, which is pretty neat. As you play this game, you need to invoke the feeling of gloom. Maybe it's the snow that never seems to stop falling, the cawing of a raven, or a squeaky gate. This game even includes a few suggested locations, like a town with a significant glacier that the government is coming out to measure. That's the other big thing about setting up your game in Malice. Not only do you need to set up the town, but you're setting up a big event. It can be a lot of different things, but it's going to be something that really shifts the town's perspective. Like perhaps is a factory going to get bought out or closed down? Is someone coming to spend cash? Before this event takes place, probably the worst thing happens. A body appears. Whatever the event is, it has a lot of people invested. You can actually play this game with or without a facilitator. I think if you're unfamiliar with running games collaboratively, a facilitator can really be a big help. But the way that it's written, you absolutely can share the responsibilities out amongst yourselves. I always like games that are facilitator optional because it means the players do have to get up and do some of the legwork of setting up the game. There also aren't really any stats in this game. This game is based on a system called the story pillar game. Basically, there'll be one character in the scene who's the main focus. They're the spotlight character. They get to roll a big pool of dice. Opposing the character will be some other force rolling another pool of dice. Depending on where the character is, different motivations and different forces can be that oppositional pool. Players can bolster their roles by introducing new non-player characters or new locations or other things to the scene. Players generally, by rolling these pools of dice, are trying to remove dice from the bad thing. One of these opposing forces is literally called the darkness, or you could be rolling against the body or the event. By winning against these forces, you get to remove dice from their pool, eventually weakening them over a act structure. Generally, you want to be rolling 4s and above. The more successes you have, the more likely you are to win against the opposing pool. In this game, you are hopefully going to solve the mystery of how the body appeared, but this could shake what has kept the town so peaceful. I mentioned earlier that the players get to contribute to the world of the game by creating it as they play. Not only do they get to do that, but when setting up their character, they get to choose from several archetypes of the town to potentially play. These characters might be on the in or they might be on the out. They definitely all have something they are perhaps trying to hide or preserve. Your characters are also going to have probably messy relationships with one another. These are represented using more index cards and dice. The characters can work to try to straighten out their relationships, but the clock is ticking on solving that mystery. For the most part, I really like this game. I kind of intuitively feel like I understand the story pillars structure, and I can see why this game calls itself a story game rather than a role-playing game. I generally really like any game that has the players get invested in setting up the world. I also love me a good index card moment. I will say I wish this game spent a bit more time on the manual on the safety mechanics. They mention the X card and veils and lines, but I think it's a bit of a short passage for how dark this game's themes tend to be. This game manual also gets so close to managing it well, in my opinion, that just missing the mark makes it even more frustrating. I think even if they'd included just a copy of an X card in this game manual, it would have solved it for me. The section, in my opinion, is just too short for the contents of this game. They finish off the section with the well-meaning message of don't be dicks to one another, but one of the things that is complicated about role-playing games and story games is that while you're trying to create a good story with one another, people can accidentally and unintentionally hurt other people's feelings or sensibilities without even realizing it. People tend to be unpleasant on accident, in my experience. But here's another positive thought for now. I also really like that the game has the roles of the different pools be out in the open. You're not fighting against an individual, you're fighting against atmosphere. If you are a lover of Nordic noir or crime shows in general, this could be a great pick of a game for you. I will say, especially if you like them to be set in desolate places, this game is going to be a winner. It is also, in my opinion, a great chance for some meaty roleplay. Though, if you do not want to deal with death and other dark themes, I don't think this is the game for you, and I would possibly consider just passing over this one entirely. You can get A Town Called Malice through Drive-thru RPG at the moment for $25 for the soft cover. There's also a hardcover available as well, but for a game of this size, I tend to prefer the soft cover options anyway. But what did you think of A Town Called Malice? Where would you set a game of A Town Called Malice in? I think, of course, as an Australian, I would do a remote Australian setting. There's always something very spooky about isolated places. What kind of location would you choose, or event? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. While you're there, I encourage you to like this video, subscribe and turn on notifications so YouTube tells you when I've uploaded next. You can even share this video with a friend. The more attention this video gets, the more YouTube thinks it's worth sharing. I also have a Ko-Fi page where you can donate to keep this channel going. But just watching and supporting here is more than enough, and I greatly appreciate it. I hope you're all well, and I look forward to seeing you next time at the gaming table. Bye!